So oil and gas acreage ages kind of like a neighborhood where you start with the model homes and then you have the build outs, then you have the last little awkward lots, the infill wells, and then you just end up having the flipping and the renovations at the tail end of the neighborhood. Your oil and gas assets act very similar to that, and knowing where you are in that curve helps you know whether the next check will be bigger or smaller and whether stuff's coming down the pipeline for you. This wave here is our maturity wave, and this is the market value over time follows generally this maturity wave. And so for this particular tract, it's considered in the development phase. The development phase is right in the middle. So this is, I guess, like your 20s, 30s, if you're looking at it from how active of an age range you are, like if this was a human. So you have exploration. So that's nothing is happening on the tract. There's not any activity. There's no producing wells, and it's just someone has to find something on that acreage. It's pretty quiet from the surface level. Delineation means that they found something. They might be kind of inching your way. There's maybe one or two wells that are starting to be drilled to test the waters, or test the reservoir, I should say. And then once you get into development mode, that means that they've established that there's reservoir there. They've established how best to develop that reservoir, and they are full out attacking it. If this was a neighborhood, that's where you start getting all of like the houses built up because they're fully like it's a development, right? That's what we call this is what we call them. And so delineation with the neighborhood analogy, you can think of it as there's one road, a couple dirt roads, and like 5 houses that have like it's the builder houses where they're advertising, you could have a house like this. That's the delineation phase, while the development phase is when you start actually getting all the houses filled in. Exploitation then is where we'll just run with that development, that housing analogy. Exploitation phase would be like when I bought my house, there was like 5 lots left in the entire neighborhood, and we got our pick of 5. In the oil and gas world, we call that infill drilling. And that's where you're just like stripping the last little bits and you're finding the last little places where you can drill. There's still drilling happening. There's still growth potential. There's still future income. Like your income still might go up. There's still things that can swing the outcomes still. However, most of the actual activity, most of the actual development has already happened. In this case, like you don't have your pick of the litter. All the prettiest lots with the best trees and the best views have all been taken, and you have your like 5 or 6 left that may or may not have a very steep driveway because you had to build kind of odd on the lot, and it backs right up to this house right next to it, which looks into your back window. But that's neither here nor there. That's the infill wells. They're just not as good as the parent wells, is what our oil and gas side calls them. Not that is, definitely was not pulling from personal experience on the lots situation. But nonetheless, it's still a good thing. You're still on the high end of the wave. Once you get past that exploitation phase, that's when you're in the late life. And again, we'll just keep going with that analogy. This is your 20, 30-year-old neighborhoods that there's no additional place where you can drill drill. I just swapped right back to it. There's no additional places where you can build a new house. And if you were to build, again, you'd have to probably either renovate and tear down the old houses and build a new house, or you're flipping houses, or that's the workover phase in oil and gas. That's the going up hole for additional zones in the same wells. That's the phase where you're changing the production equipment to try to get the last little bits. A lot of times the industry calls them stripper wells. I think that's just the female in me doesn't really like that term, but there's a stripper well association. So apparently we're just going with it, but that's late life. And then this is for one particular tract. And when we say tract, we mean a like plot of land. So if you look at a deed, if you look at a lease, something that could be leased or deeded. So on a whole, like each one of these little squares is a tract. This is, colored by section or colored by interest type. And I guess I should back up. This is our core portfolio that we're looking at here. And there we go. Once I click on one of these tracts, that's what we were just looking at, is a single tract view of that particular, what's going on in that part of the world. But if you were to roll that up, you can also look at that from a dashboard setting. How does that roll up on a dashboard? Well, how do my tracts stack up on a maturity and phase of development overall? Like maybe I just got a big wave of new production, and a big wave of royalties is actually how that probably feels. You don't really probably think of it as production. You think of it as checks coming in. And what is that from? Is the wave mostly over, or is it just beginning? And so for this particular, let's say that this is a hypothetical portfolio, but let's say this was yours, you would probably have seen a wave come through, and you're about to see more waves come through, is basically what this is saying. And then you have a good chunk of land that's not yet exploited. It's still in the exploration phase. It's probably the minimum value it's going to be. If it's going to go up any in the future, that's kind of where it's starting.